Hello, welcome back to All Things Korean. This episode is going to be another pronunciation video explaining why 감사합니다 is pronounced as 합니다 and a bunch of other words that might have confused you in a similar way. Now, when you ask a native Korean, why is 감사합니다 pronounced as 감사합니다? Why is 밥 먹어 pronounced as 밥 먹어? Why is 웃는 pronounced as 웃는? And most of the time, the response you're going to get from native Koreans is, it's just more comfortable that way. It's easier to pronounce. It just sounds more natural. And as a non-native Korean speaker, you might be thinking, that makes no sense at all. Why can't we just pronounce words the way they are written? And I'll just give you one quick example to illustrate. Let's look at the word bookmark. In Korean, we would write this as bookmark. And when Koreans read it, they pronounce it as bookmark. Instead of 북, they will change it to a 붕 and pronounce it as bookmark. Whereas for an English speaker, it's perfectly acceptable to pronounce the K. We say bookmark. We don't change it into like an NG sound. We don't pronounce it bookmark. We say bookmark. So there's a big difference. The same sounds that are natural to a Korean speaker's ears are not equally natural to another language speaker. In other words, it's just more natural, it's just more comfortable. That's not an acceptable response. There are a lot of other teachers or sources that will explain that there's a thing called consonant assimilation, and that happens when certain consonants come together in a word and they assimilate to each other. So they change their properties to become similar to one another to become easier to pronounce. And if you look at the list of Korean pronunciation rules, there are a lot of them. You might see rules such as when so-and-so consonant is followed by this type of consonant, then it's pronounced like this. And that's a lot to memorize. And what this video is going to be about is why these rules exist. When does this consonant assimilation occur? And for which consonants does assimilation occur? Is there some sort of pattern? The answer is yes, there is. There's an underlying rule that goes much deeper than just simply consonant assimilation. And this is a bit in-depth. It's very, linguistics-y and a little bit nerdy. So, if you're interested in this kind of explanation, then please keep watching. But I should just put out a disclaimer that I don't think this is 100% necessary to know. Most Korean speakers don't know about this at all. It just comes to them naturally. So I think if you just, listen to a lot of Korean and imitate Koreans a lot, then these pronunciation rules will come naturally to you, like habitually over time. If you just want to know the deeper explanation though, then this video is for you. So the highlight of today's video, the term that we're going to be looking at is something that is called 음소 배열 제약. And in English, it's something called phonotactic constraints. This comes from a branch of phonology, and basically what it is, it's just a set of rules that dictate what sounds can come together, what sound sequences are acceptable in a language. And obviously, these rules are different for each language, which is why something may sound natural in one language, but not natural in another. And because of these differences, Koreans pronounce certain words a certain way. So what are the phonotactic constraints in Korean, specifically in Korean consonants? And to explain this rule, I need to divide Korean consonants into three classes or three categories. The first group, we'll call this number one, is the liquid consonant. And liquid consonants are made when the tongue only partially closes the mouth, and that might be a bit confusing, but liquids in English are L and R. So the equivalent in Korean, the Korean liquid consonant is li을, which sort of makes an L-R sound, but isn't quite I'll leave a link in the description if you want to learn more about that. But anyway, category 1 is liquids. Category 2 is nasal consonants. Nasal consonants are consonants that are articulated via air that goes through the nose rather than the mouth. In English, nasal consonants are, M or N, and similar consonants in Korean would be mium, niun, and ing. If you want to check whether a consonant is nasal or not, try to pronounce it after blocking your nose, and if you can't say it naturally, then it's a nasal consonant.
M, N.
See, it sounds weird. And the third consonant is the stop. These consonants have a complete block, a stop in the airflow when they are pronounced, which is why they're called stops. And these are your typical consonants like, B, T, P, K, etc., etc. There's a stop at one point. In Korean, they are consonants like, piup, kiok, tigut, so on and so forth. So, according to the phonotactic constraints in Korean, there is a certain hierarchy among these three consonant classes. And I just gave you number 1, 2, and 3, right? So when two consonants come together, in other words, when a syllable with a consonant 받침, a consonant ending, is followed immediately by another syllable that starts in a consonant, this hierarchy needs to take place. And what that means is that the consonants, when they are pronounced, have to be in order. So a number 3 consonant cannot come before a number 2 or a number 1 consonant. If a weaker consonant, if a lower number consonant comes before a higher number consonant, then the two consonants are pronounced as is. However, if it's not the case, then the consonant assimilation takes place and they are pronounced a little differently for ease of pronunciation for the native speaker. And this might be really confusing, so I'm just going to give you a few examples and hopefully that will clear everything up. We'll start with the title of this video and the first question that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, 감사합니다. So let's look at 감사합 and 니. 합 ends in a consonant. It ends in piup, which is a stop. So this is a number 3 consonant. Following is ni, and ni starts with a niun, which is a nasal consonant. So if you look at the sequence of this, it's number 3 and then 2. And in Korean, according to Korean phonotactic constraints, this is not acceptable. A 3 cannot come before a 2. So what happens? Consonant assimilation takes place. The number 3 consonant that comes at the front, the piup, it gets changed into a number 2 consonant. And what's a number 2 consonant? It's a nasal consonant. So how do we know which nasal consonant it becomes? What happens is that the consonant maintains its place of articulation. If that's confusing, basically it means the sound just takes place at the same part of the mouth. So piup, the pa or piup, is a bilabial stop, which means it's spoken by the two lips touching each other. 파, 파, 감사합. And the bilabial nasal consonant is mium. Mium is a consonant that is pronounced when the two lips are touching. That's why it becomes ham, 감사합니다. If it becomes a nasal consonant, then if you look at the consonant classes, it's a number 2 followed by a number 2, and it's not, clashing or anything. It's the same class, so it's acceptable and it can be pronounced as so. Let's look at another word, 얼굴. 얼 ends in a liquid consonant, the li을, and is followed by 굴, which starts with a stop. This means it's a number 1 followed by a number 3. The hierarchy is still in place, and therefore there is no consonant assimilation that takes place, and the word is just pronounced as it is. Let's look at another word, the word 대통령, which means president. 대통, 통 ends in a 이응. The 받침 is 이응, which is a nasal consonant, and it is followed by 리을, which is a liquid. So it's a number 2 followed by a number 1. And according to Korean, this is not an acceptable sequence. So what happens is the 리을 gets upgraded to a number 2 and it becomes a nasal. Now 리을 is an alveolar consonant, so it becomes an alveolar nasal, which is 니은. So it takes place at the same position of the mouth. It's just the way that they are pronounced becomes a little different according to the class. And there are charts that you can refer to make it easier to understand. But I mean, I don't think this is necessary to memorize. There is no need for you to memorize this rule, but I think it's just good to understand that there is a fundamental reason as to why all these pronunciation rules exist. So that was really the purpose of this video. I'm not teaching you any particular pronunciation rules. I just wanted you to know that there is this concept, and maybe that might help you be a little more understanding when you find it really frustrating that there are so many Korean pronunciation rules that you need to be aware of. And instead of just blindly memorizing every pronunciation rule, maybe if you keep this in mind, it'll help you just study a bit more efficiently, maybe. I don't know. Let me know what you thought about this video and if it helped you in any way. If it was really useless and I was just nerding out for like 20 minutes, then let me know as well, and I'll take that into consideration for my future videos. Anyway, if you did like it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to All Things Korean for more Korean related videos, and I'll see you in the next one. 다음 영상에서 만나요.